Hey there, Renegades! Community Specialist Rena Amaranthine here to give you a bit of an intro to this video. We wanted the focus to be on Lynn's amazing sculpting, so we opted for voiceover only. We're really excited to show you some more Heroscape behind the scenes and maybe spark some ideas for future panels or streams. We'll see! But without further ado, our Heroscape behind the scenes miniature sculpting panel. Do you want to introduce yourself, Lynn, before we jump into the mini model part?
Yeah, sure. So, hi guys. Hi Rina. Thank you for inviting me to join this session. I'm Ling. I'm a 3D artist that has been working in this industry for about 7 years. Previously, I served for Hasbro, Sony, Tencent, and many other companies to do 3D models for games, films, and toys, all sort of stuff. And now I'm doing Heroscape for Renegade. And today is just a very rough showcase to show the whole process because the whole sculpting takes many days and even weeks sometimes and involves a lot of back and forth, a lot of tweaks and collaborations between all the team members. And I just want to show you the whole process, but we can totally do a sculpting live stream if we have chance.
That'd be really fun. How long do you think that would take a sculpting live stream?
A couple hours at least.
Well, hey, maybe for next Renegade Con.
Yeah, comment below. Generally speaking, my workflow contains four stages: blockout, silhouette, structure, and details. So let's just start right with blockout. So in
Okay.
this stage, I'll just use some basic geometries to block out the shape.
So what decides like how do you decide what you put in now versus what you put in later? Because I assume the armor and stuff isn't going on to the silhouette, is it?
Yeah, basically speaking, what effect the silhouettes will get blocked at this stage. In this case, the arms, the guns, and the ammo chains, and of course the body, which really define the character, will get blocked.
Mhm.
And the other small things like those gears on the fingernails, eyelashes, maybe. We'll save that for later stage.
All the little detail things. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and another ball.
I think he looks great right now. We could print this.
Nobody will buy this.
I'll buy it. Yeah, so how do you decide the like size of the weapons? Are you just like going based off eye and like the sketch?
Yeah, just eyeballing it because everything we have right now will be abandoned. It's just placing something right there to represent everything we need. It's not final shape, and it's
Mhm.
not even the final position.
Do you like have different strategies for like say if you were blocking out like a humanoid creature instead of a centipede, is that a different process for you or how do you do that?
Yeah, a little bit difference do exist, but I say not that much. The basic concept is still from big to small. Like I like to start with body and then the limbs and the head and other features. Like for this guy, the ammo and the machine guns, and for dragons, like the wings and the tails for squirrels. So not that much difference, but I know there are some artists that like to start with the visual interest, aka the head.
Mhm.
But I'm more of a traditional old school person. Right
I
now
think
for
that looks great.
block out stage.
That comes together so quickly and you can already start to see it pulling together. That's so
Yeah.
cool. So what's the next step?
So next step is to sculpt out the silhouette of the creature, but I'm just doing the arm today to save time.
That's a good idea. So do you
Yeah.
have a lot of creative freedom at this step? Like do you sort of get to play around with how it's going to look or do you stick very strictly to the sketch?
Well, it depends. Some concept artists are really ambitious, I can tell from the drawing. They almost drew out every details they want. And some concept artists just leave more space for us 3D artists to do our work. But there's always space for creativity because, you know, not everything looks good in 2D also works in 3D. Like, for
Mhm.
example, in this sketch, the deltoid part is actually kind of off because I'm quite sure the deltoid and the bicep is not on the same plane. It's a little bit anatomy error. I've done this over and over a lot of times, so I can remember every muscle, but I just can't remember the muscle name. They're too
Hey, you don't need
complicated.
them. As long as you can see them.
It's just too hard to remember all these Latin names.
But it looks really good. So how do you decide? Because we're still just in silhouetting. So when do you decide that this is like good enough to move on to the next step?
Well, if you can tell what it is from this silhouette preview window, that's good to go.
So I feel like there's a lot of detail in this already. Do you plan on adding more details at this stage, or are you going to wait until moving forward? Because I know you mentioned in our conversation before
Mhm.
that it's a common mistake that people start detailing a little too early.
Yeah. I will not do details at this stage. I'm just blocking out those muscles and maybe a little bit of those mechanical structure. I'll start over again later stage to do the low poly, high poly process. That's where I really start doing this model. And until now, it's still just trying to find out where all the things are and how big it is and
Mhm.
the silhouette, and now we can compare it with a concept art to see if the silhouette is the outline matches. The upper arm should be a little longer.
And if, like, for example, if the arm looked better shorter, would you keep it shorter or would you still try and like stick to the concept art and like make it physically longer, even if it looked not as good? Not this one.
Uh,
This one looks great, but just as an example.
I will ask. I will ask others idea, and
Yeah.
also if I can contact the concept artist, I will ask his or her idea. For 3D artists, the number one priority is to respect the concept art.
Hmm.
But there's always room for changes. I know there are some game companies that do 2D, 3D, 2D cycle. That is, when the concept art is out, the 3D artists make a 3D model out of it and then hand it back to the 2D artist, and they will draw another more detailed concept art and then go to 3D and do a more detailed model and then go back to 2D. So there is a lot of room for collaboration and changes.
That is really cool. So you spend a lot of time talking to like other artists too and sort of making a vision together. It's collaborative.
Yeah, it is. Collaboration is key.
I completely forgot that that was two cylinders and an orb not even 10 minutes ago. I was like,
Yeah.
that's an arm now. Your job is to just make him look good. It's somebody else's job to figure out what his weapons do.
Yeah, my job is not to just to respect the concept artist. Don't let them blame me. You ruin my art.
I can't imagine that would happen. I know that I would be very excited to see something that I did in 2D come to life in 3D.
Yeah, I hope so. Some concept artists are really proud.
It's a lot
So
of work, I bet. Yeah, but you also do a lot of work, and this is really good. And so, besides using, because you mentioned you used a different brush to sort of make the metal parts versus the muscle parts, what
mhm.
else do you do at this stage to sort of differentiate between like organic and inorganic? Or is this just like because of the concept sketch, and eventually somebody else will paint it?
Actually, there are a lot of ways to sculpt to differentiate muscles and metal parts in later stage while detailing. Different material has different surface texture and the forms and also color plays an important role. When
Mhm.
sculpting in this stage, I just remind myself by using the trim brush to remind me which part is the organic and which part is mechanic.
I mean, yeah, and even though it's all one color, you can tell which parts of this are organic and which part of this is like metal or armor or whatever they've put on the scary bug.
Yeah.
I'll also
So.
say the fact that you're working with like such a small drawing and still able to get like all of these details is astonishing.
Yeah, I'm used to it. You always get different qualities of concept art. Doesn't always really good to look, but you'll get the idea.
What part of the sculpting process do you think you spend the longest on?
I think this part
Okay.
during the silhouette because that's where all the bases. You want to make the base look good until before you make anything else. Before you step further, I think that looks good, and you can already tell it's a arm from the
Yeah.
silhouette. And you can see how the muscles grow, and which part is hard and which part is soft.
That yeah, it's incredible. And like I said, like 10 minutes ago it was two cylinders and a sphere. And now it looks like when you're digging through a toy box and you find the arm that popped off of like a soldier doll.
Yeah, so next step is doing the structure. In this step, I will use a low high poly workflow. Is to make a low poly first and then dive into high poly. So the first step is extract out is to make a low poly. The method I always extract out the surface and then remesh it until it's a low poly. First step, just mask out the part I want to make low poly. Let's do this part first because this comes on top of the other one.
And for like our viewers who might not know, what is the difference between like the low poly and high poly and why you do this step?
The low poly refers to a geometry that has relative low poly count that gives you easier control and to the topology flow and the shape. And the high poly refers to the final finished product that has a high poly count that is really hard to make changes to it. So I would like to start with a low poly and then work level up to the high poly.
So just building more details, getting things
Yeah.
more structured. That makes sense.
So now we get a really clean surface to work on. And from this point, I can adjust the shape as much as I want. It won't affect any detail I shall work on later.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so that must make it nice and easy when you need to adjust just like one little thing and you don't have to move the whole sculpture.
Yeah, I don't need to worry about messing up the details I did and worry about the surface are getting too bumpy. It will always be really clean with a simple polish.
And we talked about it a little bit during the silhouette process about how like you used like real anatomy to build this arm and sort of understand how the 3D shapes work. And obviously Heroscape is not quite realism. So how do you balance that stylization of the Heroscape characters and things with like your knowledge of the 3D shapes, anatomy, all of that?
Well, I would describe the Heroscape style as a stylized realism. That style is utilized by many board games since the physical limitations when molding and when playing. You don't want something to be too thin and too small, and the players can't see it at all on a 40 millimeter high miniature. And if something gets too thin, it will get easily broken while playing the toy. Like for example, the ammo chains. I want to keep it at least 2 millimeters thick to make it strong enough to hold. So.
Yeah.
The most feedback I get while I was making this model is make this thing bigger, make that thing bigger, and make the head bigger. You can already see from this, the head is a lot bigger from the first version, and the arm is also bigger, and also the claws are bigger and set aside at both sides of the body instead of folding up because it will make it hard to mold.
Does it make it easier for you when they're slightly bigger to work on?
It depends. If it's too big, it's hard to hide all these flaws I will make. But also I don't need to worry about many fine details when things are really big.
So what do you think is going to be like, or was, I guess, because you've done this before and you're redoing it for us on stream. Thank you very much. Like, what was the hardest part of this to sculpt?
For this model, I think this is the forearm, the rotation of the forearm, called pronation and supination, right?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, because that involves two. I think this is the second hardest part in anatomy, human anatomy, because that involves two measure bones. Rotation and overlaying one on top of the other, and there's a lot of muscle that controls the fingers going together and attached on both bones. So this model it didn't turn out that much. It's not that hard, but still challenging.
Yeah,
to figure out the anatomy there.
that's cool. I would have thought it would be like the machine gun, but I guess those are just shapes.
Yeah, that part looks complicated, but that's just a bunch of shapes, so it's not that much of a deal.
Is that part of like because you mentioned that you have a method for keeping the mechanical parts from being too rigid up against like organic parts, which I imagine comes handy a lot for Heroscape because so many characters are wearing armor.
Yeah, so the key is just to try to avoid perfect straight lines because that only exists on human-made stuff.
Hmm.
All the organic stuff have curves, so to make it feel more organic, you just need to try to keep the curve, keep the feeling, although it's a hard surface part.
But it's not blocky. Like it's very obviously armor and not like
Yeah,
blocks.
not Minecraft block.
I didn't want to take away the opportunity for you to say Minecraft blocks.
Yeah, I've been waiting for that. It's too time consuming to do other parts. Let's just stick into the deltoid and hide the others. So from now on, can just set the concept art aside for a while and look into references I find. For mechanic part, I always like to find references on those engines.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, I would
Uh,
never have thought about like the inside of an engine.
Yeah, this looks really cool when it comes to mechanic part. For this circle, I think it kind of uh looks like here.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what it is, but I will replicate it. I think it looks cool here to add a bit more detail.
Mhm.
Okay, I want to go this far, or before I spend too much time on it. Okay, I'll just stop here and go to detail.
So
Uh,
that's the end of structure. You can like completely tell what it is. It's taking shape. You can start feeling like the personality. And then the last section is details. So
yes.
what sort of details do you start putting in at this stage?
So, as for details, I think it's more of a storytelling moment. I will imagine how this character lives and in the world of Heroscape and how they fight and their personalities. Usually, at this stage, I didn't have access to the full background story of the characters, so I'll just use some common sense. Like this guy is definitely a shooter, so it takes more bullet wounds rather than the knife wounds, and he looks really proactive, aggressive.
Yeah.
So he will take more damage than the others. So when I was doing those things, I will imagine like, what if, oh, in this stage, just remember to create a layer so you can go back anytime.
Mhm.
I imagine what if it takes a bullet from here
Mhm.
at
You can
the
see the wear and
sharp end.
tear.
Yeah, at the sharp end.
And
I
like they're
also,
small details, but they make a huge difference.
yeah, now I can really see the story behind the character. Maybe some scratches. Scratches usually too detailed for the miniature like this, but adding some of them satisfy myself.
Yeah.
And I always check the real life references, how those medals really wears in real life. And
Mhm.
but the problem of this is sometimes I will do too much details and it looks too busy.
Yeah, so what do you do if you like have put a bunch of detail, you look at it and you're like, "Oh, this might be a little overcrowded. This might be a little too busy."
Yeah, so that's why I keep layers here, so I can always go back. Uh,
Any artist agrees. Lots of layers.
Yeah, let me see. Yeah, we didn't do much details on this product, because I remember my supervisor said they want to leave more free space for the painters to paint.
Hmm.
They can distress them by themselves and tell the stories by themselves. The players are also storytellers. I saw those really amazing painting work they posted on media, and I see how they physically make all these wares by themselves. So better than I do. So I want to leave them more space to create by themselves and try to do minimal work on my side.
But even just those like those minor details that like softening the corners, you can tell this is like a piece of armor that has been worn for a long time and used
Yeah.
and like seen some battle versus a brand new one.
The sculpting process involves a lot of trying, a lot of experiment like this. Not every idea will work, but you will never know before you try.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and you can always undo it if you do something, try it, don't like it, keeping
Yeah.
the layers, undo button. Thank you, undo button.
Yeah, lifesaver.
Do you like have a favorite material to sculpt? You have like a ton of the mechanical references, and like you've done this piece of armor beautifully. But is that like your favorite thing to sculpt to make?
No, actually, I like muscle more than mechanical parts. Uh, I always said to my friend I should have born in ancient Greek. I like watching Mr. Olympics, although I don't exercise by myself. Every time I look at those muscles, I can I always said how magnificent the nature is. How can somebody create, how can God create something like this? It's so elegant, so powerful.
That's beautiful. And
Yeah.
now I know
So
why so many of our figures have such nice muscles and belts.
yeah, I did a lot of them. Okay. Basically, you get the idea is just remember to do the storytelling while doing all the detail stuff.
Hmm.
And basically, that's the process of how I create this model. I just to do all the stages over and over again on each pieces, and do many back and forth, do many tweaks, and collaboration with other artists to see which part need to be adjusted and which part we can keep that. So I think that's all for today.
That's so incredible. From block out to final detail, like just the drastic difference. And thank you so much for like, yeah, the side by side,
Yeah.
beautiful. Thank you for showing us and letting us watch and letting me ask you questions the whole time you were working.
It's okay. It's also the first time I do live stream. That's kind of stuff.
Well, I it was really great. Like this has been a lot of fun, and I think we like if you're open to it, I think we'd like to like have you back on again sometime.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's
All
fun
right.
when I talking to people while sculpting. The time
I'm
flies
glad.
by.
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. Big thanks to our sculptor, Lean, for sharing their process. And thank you so much for watching. If you loved this behind the scenes look, be sure to check out our Heroscape reveals and more interviews that we're doing here at Renegade Con. Tell us your favorite detail from the sculpt in the comments. Let us know if you'd like to see like a sculpting live stream. That might be something, that we're thinking about. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.